Mental health issues come in all shapes and sizes, which means that mental health treatment needs to do the same. I have long been a big fan of holistic approaches, which take into account, treatment of the whole person, not just specific symptoms. Today, we'll talk about three of my all-time favorite approaches: biofeedback, yoga, and acupuncture. We'll discuss how all of these are excellent, proven approaches for mental health issues such as substance use disorder, OCD, PTSD, ADHD, anxiety, and depression, and whether these treatments are right for you. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the podcast. So good to have you here. Oh, this is going to be a good one today. We're going to cover a lot of ground with a ton of research, which, as always, will be linked on my show notes page on the website, abbymedcalf.com, for this episode. And if you're watching me on YouTube, hello, below the video, you'll see all the links if you want to go deep on the research. And before we begin, I want to say just three quick things about what I'm going to talk about. So first, my absolute favorite holistic approach to mental health is meditation. And you know that if you've been listening to me for more than 5 minutes, because I talk about it friggin' all the time. I've done an entire episode on how meditation will transform all your relationships, of course, including the one with yourself. So I'm not going to spend time on meditation today, but if you want to learn how to meditate, you can download my free meditation starter kit. You can buy my Learn How to Meditate for 15 Minutes in Just 15 Days mini course. There's a ton of great apps out there where you can learn to meditate. I use Insight Timer. No, they're not a sponsor. You should be if you're listening, Insight Timer. Calm, Headspace, there's a bunch of them, right? I don't care what you choose, but please look into incorporating some form of meditation or visualization exercise into your daily routine. Okay. So I just want to say that. So I'm not going to talk about it today, but I got to say that. The second thing I want to mention is that holistic approaches are meant to augment regular therapy by, some sort of certified mental health professional. It's like, taking medication for a mental health issue. You're not supposed to just do that without, therapy. In other words, it's not meant as a substitute. So holistic or taking meds or whatever, it's most effective when used in conjunction with some really good therapy or coaching or whatever it is that, you do. And the last thing I want to say is that all these approaches have, again, robust research showing they also help with many physical issues, cardiovascular problems, blood pressure, migraines, pain management's a huge one. I'm not going to focus on the physical today because we'd be here for 5 hours. But I am, and I'm going to mostly stay in my lane. It's not like I'll never mention anything physical, but I'm not talking today about, using meditation as a great way to get rid of your migraines. So I'm going to stay in my lane, focusing on mental health, when I talk about these modalities. But if you have a co-occurring physical issue along with anything you're struggling with mental health wise, then I really hope you listen hard. If you have a pain management issue, if you have high blood pressure or whatever, I implore you, please listen till the end, because everything, again, I'm not going to link to all the research, but everything I'm going to say today is going to really help you with any of those things also. So, hey, bang for your buck. What a deal. Doing, getting some physical problems taken care of along with your mental health. All right. So, and by the way, if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review. We've had some beautiful ones lately. Thank you. I read every one. Okay. You can leave them on Apple. I know it's hard to leave, it doesn't really work on Spotify where a lot of you listen. But a lot of you also listen on Apple, so please leave a review there. It just helps more people find the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hey, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment. I generally answer back unless your comment was nasty, and then why are you leaving it? I'm not doing a good job, obviously, if you're still leaving nasty comments, if you're that miserable in your life. But I'm just saying, give some love. You're receiving. We're in a reciprocal relationship. which means that you don't just sit there getting that, all this free, fabulous information, that you also give to me, because that's how relationships work. And when you just receive, you end up feeling entitled. And that is why people leave nasty messages under videos. And if you've ever done it, I want you to check yourself, get to the point, or this is bullshit, or whatever. It's because you're feeling entitled. Like it cracks me up when someone leaves a negative I'm like, move along. There's 100,000 other things you could be listening or watching. You don't need to say anything. Just go. But this idea that, oh, you've wasted my time, or, you're so mad about listening for 5 minutes, is really about entitlement. So I say with love, but that's what it is. So get real. All right. So let's get into it. When someone says they have a holistic mental health approach, what they're saying is that their approach is focused around the inner relationship between body, mind, and spirit. Okay. And I know that sounds funky to even say out loud, spirits with spirit, but your spiritual life, your physical life, and your mental life, or your, what's happening emotionally. The National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine at the National Institutes of Health here in the US was created in 1992 to help evaluate holistic or alternative methods of treatment. So we're really lucky here in the US, and other countries have it too. And I know I have all my beautiful listeners in Australia and Great Britain and Canada, and I mean, really all over the world. Sorry if I didn't name your country. I can't look at all the organizations in every country. I'd be spending 10 hours for each podcast. So I apologize. I love you. And, you're welcome to look at things, here in the US, but I know that there's also agencies in your respective countries, and most of them, that are looking into holistic treatment and what's effective and what's not, right? Because they want to identify the ones that are effective and help really integrate them into mainstream healthcare. So that's the beauty of these kind of organizations. This one I just mentioned is incredibly important for anyone who wants evidence-based approaches and to really feather out all the misinformation, the fact from fiction, because there's a ton of misinformation out there. And what I love, and I'm going to link to these articles. Okay. So I don't care where you are in the world. I think this will be helpful. This National Institute of Health department, they have articles explaining how to understand clinical studies, how research works, as well as how to understand the medical terminology. I'm going to link to some specific ones like that if you want to come over and get that information. Again, on my website, abbymedcalf.com, or below if you're watching on YouTube. And because I think, when I always link to the research, but I think a lot of you might go there and then see all the, the language is so crazy. Research language is just so different. It's so formal. And you might just go, oh, I don't understand that. I'll just have to believe Abby, which is fine. You can, because I really am. That's why I linked to everything, because it's real. However, if you want to learn how to read those things, you can. You don't have to have a PhD to do it. You just have to know the kind of tricks to it. And those articles, I think, will help. All right. We need to talk about biology a little bit. So I want you to just give me, I swear it's going to be like 3 minutes of your time. All right. The reason these holistic approaches are an excellent addition to regular therapy, and even almost a necessity, is because when you're talking about mental health diagnoses, you're talking about a hijacked brain. So although you might learn a great, technique or tool or tip in therapy or here on the podcast, you likely find yourself not able to use it, or you just forget about it. It goes completely out of your head in the times when you need it most. You know what I mean? You've been there. You can't remember, oh, Abby taught me that great tool, because the thinking part of your brain is shut down. Your brain has literally been hijacked. So doing something that's physical to unhijack your brain first is really key. So you can then access your thinking brain and all the great tools that I taught you, all the great things you've learned. So again, just give me 3 minutes. I want to do a quick biology lesson. I've talked about this on other episodes, but I want to drive home the point now so you really understand why these holistic methods and alternatives, so to speak, could be just push your therapy into the stratosphere. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe you've been slogging at it for a while, or maybe you can't afford regular therapy, but you could do one of these. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm really putting it out there. So okay, so here we go. I'm just going to do it down and dirty here. So you have a nervous system that is made up of your brain, your spinal cord, and all your nerves. Okay. Your nerves send messages between your brain and the rest of your body. That's what they do. Your nervous system is actually made up of two different nervous systems. You have your voluntary and your involuntary. So I'm using my voluntary nervous system right now. It's really anytime you control your body movements. So, I'm moving my hands around because you know me when I talk, I move my hands around. I'm talking, whatever that is, right? Whatever you're doing intentionally. Your involuntary nervous system is the one you're not in control of, and it oversees things, digestion, breathing, salivating, blinking your eyelids, all that stuff. So now here's the deal. That involuntary nervous system has two different nerve pathways, a relaxed pathway and an emergency pathway. And when there's anything your brain perceives as a threat, that involuntary nervous system's emergency system takes over. So going around your day, you should be in the relaxed state, in the relaxed involuntary nervous system. That's when you're digesting everything and you're fine. You're walking around and life is okay. Everything's working, everything's as it should be. But if there's any kind of thing that you deem as a threat, and trust me, that can be like getting a bill, literally, your involuntary nervous system, that emergency system takes over. So stress hormones flood your system. It gives you it's a burst of energy. It's meant to run from the predator. Okay. You get that sinking feeling in your belly. You know what I'm talking about. You do not want to eat or digest anything. Maybe you even have diarrhea or you feel nauseous. Your heart beats faster to pump more blood. Your breathing becomes more shallow and faster to take in more air. You might start sweating. Anybody get start sweating when they get nervous? Your pupils become bigger so you can see in the dark if you're running from a predator in the dark. That happens no matter what. This response was, again, like all well and good, hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, when we were running from predators, but now it gets in the way. And I think the example I always use is if you imagine that you're at work at 8 a.m. and your boss says she wants to see you at 2 p.m., right? That feeling, I'm talking about. Oh my God, the blood just rushes to your legs, right? Which, by the way, that sinking feeling in your tummy is the blood rushing to your legs to run, just so you know. Okay. Or, it's in the morning and your partner's acting kind of grumpy maybe, and you were like, hey, how you doing? Are you okay? Is everything okay? And all of a sudden they turn on you with, well, actually, no, everything's not okay, but I got to get to work, so we're going to have to speak later. I would kill Gary if he tried to say that to me, kill him. I'd be like, oh no, sweetie, we're talking right now because I'm not going to be nauseous and anxious all day. So yeah, you can feel your stomach sink, right? As your brain goes into overdrive, wondering what's wrong. You try to keep busy doing other things, but your brain keeps pulling you back to the situation that has you upset. You've tried to concentrate, but you can't. And this is because you weren't supposed to stop thinking about the tiger trying to eat you. You were not supposed to be running from it going, hey, I wonder what I should have for dinner. No. And again, a million years ago, running from a predator would have burned off all those stress hormones being dumped into your system as you ran for your life. But in today's scenarios where we have chronic stress, you're not physically running from anything. So those stress hormones don't burn off, which, by the way, is why things like, intense exercise is one of the best ways to alleviate anxiety because it burns off those stress hormones. It doesn't work necessarily long-term for everybody, but it certainly works at least immediately. And then again, over time, you get a cumulative effect. So when you don't run away from the predator, these stress-inducing hormones and these neurotransmitters keep running through your body and your brain, and that stress becomes anxiety. right? And again, that's the reason that tips often don't work that you learned in therapy, because your brain is hijacked. So you can't get to that thinking part, as I said. It's all about releasing your brain from that state first, and then using your great problem solving tools, right? So meditation, yoga, biofeedback, and acupuncture are ways to override your physical responses so you can remain calm and in control of your thinking and reactions. And again, you don't have to use them just in the moment. You don't have to, like, if your partner is upset with you, go do a yoga pose. It's that when we are doing these things over time, they are, again, cumulative in the system, and our system is calmer. That relaxed involuntary nervous system is calmer over time. And again, we have tons of research on this and how it works, and I will link to all of it, but otherwise you just have to believe me. And you know what? I just want to mention that in January of 2025, I am going to be doing a Patreon finally, where you can listen to the podcast. You know, you'll pay a membership and you'll listen to the podcast for free without any ads. You know, otherwise you're listening to ads. And I'm going to be answering more direct questions there. We're going to be doing like direct kind of Ask Dr. Abby in the Patreon community. So I'm really excited because I feel like we can, you know, when people have more of these, I get a lot of questions about this particular thing. So I feel like we'll be able to really talk about that better in that setting. But for now, you know, believe what I say. There you go. All right. So let's talk about yoga. Yoga, and I'm just going to speak to you like you know nothing today, okay? Because that's, you know, right? Just ground zero about things. Yoga is basically a system of breathing practices, you know, stretching, breathing, meditation, physical exercises, and postures. And they're intended to integrate your, you know, your body, mind, and spirit. There that is again, right? Yoga originated in northern India, and it's like 5,000 years ago. It's been around a really long time. There are many different schools of yoga. Okay, I think there's over 40. You know, Vinyasa, Ashtanga, Hatha, Iyengar, which is really a subset of Hatha yoga. Bikram, you know, it's that hot yoga. Tantra, everyone likes Tantra. And each have their own blend of breathing and postures, as well as their own goals for you as the practitioner of that particular type of yoga. So here's why it helps. Yoga integrates, again, the mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions just of being human. And doing that is helpful to people, anyone struggling with any kind of cognitive distortion, which is really all the mental health issues. You know, when I say cognitive distortion, I mean that your thinking is off, right? So maybe you catastrophize, you know, oh my God, I toothpaste got on my shirt this morning. My whole day is going to be terrible, right? Or maybe you just, you know, generalize. Maybe you say always and never a lot. Maybe your brain goes to that. These are all cognitive distortions. Oh, that person didn't smile at me. They must hate me. You know, those are cognitive distortions. It means your thinking is distorted in some way. And if you have a depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, any of those, you have cognitive distortions. That's basically what it is. The stretching, the bending, the balancing involved in the asanas, those are the physical postures that are part of a yoga practice. They help align your head and your spinal column. They stimulate your circulatory system, your endocrine glands, your organs. They keep muscles and joints strong and flexible. Again, these are all amazing things for, you know, helping you sleep and helping you eat well and helping you digest well, and all the things that are going to help. When that's working and running well, guess what? Your brain works and runs better. And obviously feeling more spiritual and all that. I'm not going to talk about all the spiritual aspects today because, again, that'll be a whole other show. Yoga programs have been shown to reduce the risk of heart disease by lowering blood pressure and anxiety levels. Again, I said I wasn't going to talk about the physical today, but I just want to throw that in. The breath control exercises. This is pranayama. Hope I said yes. Pranayama are these kind of the way you breathe in yoga, where it emphasizes this very slow and deep abdominal breathing, not chest breathing. Okay. and that benefits your respiratory system. It helps really give you a sense, it introduces a sense of relaxation into your mind, and that's obviously super useful in stress management. Um, in the West, we've really only been researching yoga and really studying it since about the 70s. But but that's a bit of a time, not as long as I would like, so considering how long yoga's been around. But clinical trials in the US have demonstrated its effectiveness in treating asthma, osteoarthritis, heart disease, stress related illnesses, again, high blood pressure, anxiety, and mood disorders. I'm just throwing it all in there because it's kind of crazy how helpful yoga can be. In addition, yoga studies have indicated that yoga is an effective tool in the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder, substance abuse. I mean, it goes on. People who practice yoga tend to score higher in life satisfaction on the, with lower levels of irritability and psychosomatic complaints, meaning physical complaints, than control groups. Okay. Are we getting it? Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Excuse me. There's a lot of advantages to yoga. And one of the great advantages is that, to me, is that it's adaptable to a wide range of psychiatric and physical conditions. There's so many schools of yoga. There's tons of different schools to help, again, with like individual needs, individual issues. And there are even different things that can be adapted within a particular school to make it fit for a teenager or a 70-year-old or someone with back problems or someone without or someone with mental health issues, right? That's what's, I think, incredible. One of the great advantages of something like yoga. And again, although it's great, I would really encourage you to physically go to take a class. What's great is that you can learn it at home for free on YouTube or other forms of social media. And I love that. It's so accessible these days. I mean, so accessible. You can learn for free or for a modest fee in most places. It's amazing. And if you come from a part of the world where it's just part of, it's in the public schools, it's in, other places. Oh God, if we only had that everywhere here in the United States, even better. I know some of my listeners are in, countries where yoga originated, and you're just laughing right now. You're like, really? What's wrong with you people? This is the best stuff ever. But anyway, the other thing I think is really advantageous is because I have a lot of clients sometimes who have never exercised before, or it's been a long minute, they were like high school athletes or something, and now they're in their 50s. Yoga is so, again, accessible, and you can do it at home in privacy. Maybe you're self-conscious about being in public again, or trying things, or huffing your way through stuff. To me, again, that's so great. And you don't need a bunch of expensive or hard to get equipment. You can start with a square of, just some floor space that's, taller than you are, enough to put your arms out and your legs and things. And I would say a sticky mat so you don't slip. Okay. Some loose clothing. That's all you need. So again, so accessible, which I love. Now, there are some precautions for yoga, like anything else. Nothing is a cookie cutter. Nothing is meant for 100% of things. I always say, you should consult a medical doctor, or whoever you use for your physical health. It might not be a medical doctor. It might be an osteopath or something else. Oh, they're medical too. But anyway, they're ODs though. It just might be another kind of practitioner. That's fine. But, check in before starting yoga, but especially anyone with a history of injuries. I would say especially back problems, heart disease, or, oh my gosh, if you have like an inner ear thing, problems of balance, I would check. With pregnancy, there's often modifications you should be aware of, I think in the first trimester, things like that. Again, and although yoga is wonderful for most mental health issues, anyone with a history of severe trauma, especially like sexual trauma or physical trauma of any kind, if you have a history of any kind of dissociative disorder, you definitely should talk to your therapist first, and you should go slow. Pay special attention to any, if there's a yogic breathing practice or some of the deeper, again, breathing, the pranayama can trigger depersonalization symptoms, can trigger decentralizing symptoms, and you want to be mindful. Okay. I would also say I've had clients who are perfectionists, type A's, or who are highly competitive. And I have to remind them that yoga is not, it's not a competitive sport. The all or nothing thinking isn't useful here. The no pain, no gain isn't useful here. This is not the philosophy to apply. So you really have to check those things if you fall into those categories. Really, in general, you need to go slow. You need to listen to your body, notice how you're feeling. Okay. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Okay. So that's yoga. Again, all the great effective research will be linked. Number 2 I want to talk about is biofeedback. And biofeedback I have been referring to for so many years. I have somebody wonderful here in this area in San Francisco who was actually a guest on my podcast way back, Dr. Eric Pepper. Dr. Pepper. Who doesn't want to refer to Dr. Pepper? Who doesn't want to go to Dr. Pepper? He's brilliant, one of the great minds in biofeedback, in the world. If you've ever stepped on a scale or taken your temperature, that's biofeedback. You've employed biofeedback, right? You're getting feedback about your biology through an instrument. So does that make sense? You've used some kind of instrument to feed back information to you about your body's condition, about what's happening. Biofeedback is a mind-body technique and training, and it teaches people to control some of their body's functions like heart rate and breathing patterns. And I have done biofeedback myself many times, again, especially because I was referring to it and I thought, oh, I need to know what this feels like and what it is. And we'll talk about the different kinds of biofeedback and neurofeedback. But basically, for this kind of neurofeedback, electrodes and sensors are used to measure functions. So like, I sat there and I had he applied these little electrodes like on my head and I think on my chest in a couple places and my shoulders kind of, my upper chest in a couple places. And they use these sensors to measure function, whatever your functions are. And again, they can be used in different places. I'm more talking about what we use for mental health. And then they get displayed on a monitor, like a computer monitor for you to see. And I love referring clients to biofeedback because I know they're going to learn a skill they can use for the rest of their lives to help control their anxiety and their stress and their depression and other things. And that's what's so great. A lot of therapies are forever, and biofeedback is not. You go, you learn, you get these skills, these tools, and then you have them forever. It's amazing. And I really love biofeedback because you are taking responsibility for your own well-being and mental health. That's what's so great because realize you're in control. Okay. So how does it work? Basically, as I mentioned, right? Because when your brain gets hijacked, it's important to remember that, again, any stress is treated like a threat to your brain. And although those threats aren't physical, your responses are. Okay, so it's not a physical threat to get a bill in the mail or to have your tax person call or something, right? But your physical responses are. So having a way to get your breathing back in order and your brain on track is really the goal of, that's the goal. And biofeedback techniques allow you to do just that. Okay, so you sit and these little electrodes or whatever on, and like for me, I could look and see what was happening in my brain patterns, my brain waves. So as we would discuss things with my biofeedback person, you could see the brain, you could see the breathing getting constricted, the brain, different, things getting kind of lit up. And then you could see that by breathing differently and thinking different thoughts, you are actually changing your brain waves. You're actually changing what your brain is doing. And it is such a powerful feeling of agency, self-empowerment, And when you see it so visually, because a lot of the stuff, right, Abby's talking, you're like, I think that's crap, Abby. I think she's full of it. And when you see it like this, you realize it's not BS. It is so so much of therapy is qualitative, we can't always measure. This is quantitative. You can measure it exactly. It's incredible. So, and you can really see how much control you have over what's happening in this hijacking, right? You really do, and it's incredible. So, as I mentioned, I'll just say this quickly. There are 3 types of biofeedback that I know of. There's EMG, which is electromyography. Don't come for me if I'm wrong. Is that what EMG is? EMG. It measures muscle tension. I know that. Yeah, I think it's electromyography is EMG. And then there's thermal biofeedback, which measures skin temperature. And then there's neurofeedback or EEG, which measures brainwave activity. Okay. So really we're using neurofeedback, when we're talking about mental health stuff. And so again, in the session, they're going to attach these electrodes to your skin. They're going to send information to this monitoring box that translates the measurements into a tone, a visual meter, or a screen with moving lines, usually like kind of on a grid. That's how you're going to see them. And the biofeedback expert person, therapist, leads you in mental exercises, different ones. And through trial and error, you'll be able to identify mental activities or breathing patterns that will mitigate, or help negative physical responses and promote healthy ones. That's what you're doing. It's like, and that's why you have to work together. Each session is typically about an hour. I've only been to 2 different biofeedback persons, but I've looked this up and asked others. And everyone I talk to, it's pretty much an hour usually, depending on you and the condition you're being treated for. And it's often between, I would say, 8 to 10 sessions for most people, because then you'll have tools you can practice from, usually in the beginning of biofeedback, they make you go practice at home. There's these little things you can use at home, these little machines for 5 to 10 minutes a day. And you will, again, really learn these skills and integrate them. And I love that. I love when things, therapy is not forever. I love when people, again, have agency, have a sense of really being able to control. Because one of the things that's so hard with mental health issues is that you feel so friggin' out of control. You feel like no matter what I do, nothing seems to help, Abby. And yes, there are many things you can do to help. And this particular thing, it's gold, people. It's gold. I don't know what else to say. So let me have a sip of water. So let's just quickly, there's a lot of advantages to biofeedback in a multitude of areas. So again, improving mental health and stress reduction, improving sleep hugely, pain management, it goes on. And as far as I don't know, precautions or something I want you to think about. Why is my nose so itchy? If you're watching me on YouTube, you're like, why do you keep scratching your nose? I don't know. As far as precautions go, again, most of these holistic treatments are super, really do not have kind of quote unquote negative side effects, but there's nothing that's 100%. So I would say, number one, it's important to find a certified practitioner, and that might not be accessible where you live. So that can be a problem. Although you can definitely do things virtually with this. It's not the same as, again, you got to kind of get hooked up to the machine and see things, but there are forms of biofeedback that can be done, of this kind of neural feedback that can be done via Zoom or something. Another problem is that many insurance plans here in the US don't cover biofeedback. I know you in other countries, some of you are laughing at the US and our insurance system, and it is a disgrace. And I say that just, it's so, anyway, don't get me started. So for many of you in other countries, of course it's covered. Why wouldn't it be? It makes sense. And there's research on it and all that, but here in the United States, so you might not be able to get your insurance to cover it, which could be an issue for you cost-wise. But again, I would say, because you only generally have to go, again, a max of 8 to 10 times. And I've had clients go 1 to 3 times and have huge benefits. I would just really want you to at least check out somebody and see if you could use your money that way. Because again, you get a skill that you walk away with, which I love. And with any modality, check with your therapist or certified, mental health service provider to make sure your particular mental health issue isn't contraindicated with biofeedback in some ways. Again, as with yoga, people with severe physical trauma or history of dissociation might have difficulty with biofeedback. I had a client who had a pretty severe physical trauma in her past who just had trouble with the way the biofeedback person, was putting the electrodes on her. She felt funky about it. Like it didn't, it's physical. It's a physical thing. It's not like and the person was she said it, person was very appropriate. It was another woman. I had sent her to a woman because I knew about her history, and she still had a hard time with all the physically, even just touching herself in front of this woman. Cause like you'll put your hand on your tummy to the person will help you learn how to breathe. They're not touching you in that way, but just that again, it depends on who you are and how sensitive you are, and that's okay. So I just want to put that out there. If you have a physical issue with your heart or breathing, again, check with your mental health, with your physical health provider before starting. So I just want to say all that. Just check in, go slow, as I've been saying with all this stuff. All right. Acupuncture is the third one I want to talk about today. And really, acupuncture is it's like one of the oldest healing practices in the world. And it dates back to at least 3,000 years in China. An acupuncture is the stimulation of a specific points on the body by a variety of techniques. There's, of course, I think most people think of these thin metal needles that go through the skin, but there's acupressure. There's ways that you can touch and do certain movements on the different points. But these points that the acupuncture needles, let's say, go into, they connect with meridians in the body. And the goal with acupuncture is to remove blockages in the flow along these meridians. And I'm sure you've heard of qi, and that's what the goal is, so that your physical and mental health can be restored. Now, I know with acupuncture, people get like, well, it sounds qi, like, what are you talking about? I don't believe in that. Well, you should, because again, there's great research on this. So you can call it whatever you want, but we have great research on this. So can it really help your mental health conditions? Hell yes. There are numerous and robust. When I say robust, when I'm talking about a study, I mean that it's the N, or the amount of people who are being studied, is huge. There's different ethnographies, there's different ages, there's different countries and acupuncture has had so much good research over the years showing the effectiveness of it, especially, and I'm a recovering drug addict, with substance use disorder, including withdrawal, detox, cravings, discomfort. I was actually early in my career when I worked in drug and alcohol rehabs. I was certified in auricular acupuncture, which is acupuncture in your ear for detox. It's very specific. It is detox. This is in the early 80s. So I'm going to tell you, this is not early, sorry, mid 80s. Sorry, it was after I got clean. So mid to late 80s. This is then. This is when it was not popular. It wasn't a known thing. And I remember being in Fort Apache, the Bronx, at Lincoln Hospital. I'm talking like stepping over people that might be dead. This is in the 80s. This is not a good area. This is a scary place to be, but that's where I trained. And I will tell you right now, and Lincoln Hospital was like one of the first hospitals doing this. And you'd walk in these rooms, there's gangbangers hanging outside. There's people, there's guns. They're literally, I remember the windows had gunshot. You could see guns bullets had come through. And walking into a room, and there's this noisy hospital, and you walk into this room and there's a bunch of chairs, and people are just sitting in the chairs with their eyes closed or open, getting this acupuncture in their ears to help with their drug addiction, and it's effective. And I got certified in that way back when. So I've really been a big proponent of acupuncture for a long time. But it doesn't just help. So it helps with substance abuse with cravings, with discomfort, and with the detox itself with withdrawal symptoms. It's incredible. And again, still being used because it's so effective. But it's also effective with anxiety, including PTSD, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, bipolar disorder. I mean, acupuncture has been studied in so many ways with so many mental health conditions. And again, I will link to all the research because there's a ton. So, and again, like meditation, biofeedback, and yoga, acupuncture is generally a very safe and effective treatment. And like those other holistic approaches, you should speak to your mental health provider and or your physical health provider about, again, possible contraindications for using acupuncture. These, the things that are listed in the research are things like bleeding disorders, immunocompromised individuals. There can be some issues, some heart patients. Again, it's rare, but it's there. So it's something to think about before you find a practitioner. And of course, it could be hard to find someone in your area that you can afford, again, who's covered under maybe health insurance or who you can afford, who does the kind of acupuncture you need for this. But I will tell you that people who are certified in acupuncture, their schooling is generally incredible. They really know what they're doing. I've long been a user of acupuncture for many different things. It's highly effective. I'm a big fan. And again, with all of these modalities that I'm talking about, I want you to think about them in conjunction with, not as a substitute for, but in conjunction with other things. And especially if you have had a history of trauma, especially a severe trauma or any kind of dissociative problems, I really want you working with a mental health, someone ongoing, so that you can maybe use these things and maybe have no negative side effects whatsoever, but just in case, so that they can help you work through it and see if this is appropriate for you or not. Okay. All right. That is it for today. I hope this was helpful to you to sort of uncover these areas that might feel like, airy fairy to you, or like not real, or what's the deal? And I don't believe in that. You don't have to believe in anything. It's science. There's nothing. I know all these things feel very esoteric and spiritual, and it's so good, and the integration of body, mind, and spirit. But you know me, I'm cynical New Yorker. I need to have the proof. I need to have the research. I don't want to just hear that anecdotally that worked for somebody. That's great, but I talk to millions of people now. And so I need to make sure that things are going to be for the broad audience that I serve and you. And so I'm hoping I'm uncovering any of the myths or the worries you might have had about it. And you can see that this is really something, these are kinds of things to take seriously. So that is it for today. I want to remind you to, if you have ideas for a future podcast in season 7 that you would like to see covered, please email those to me at abby@abbymedcalf.com. Do not, I repeat, do not send me a long email. I don't have time. I love you so much. I work. I have to make money so that I can do this podcast. I don't have time. And it's highly unethical, for anyone to email you with no history but what you wrote in some long email to give you feedback on what you should be doing with your mental health. That's crazy. You would never, I think, write to a doctor and say, hey, someone said I have cancer and here's my symptoms. What do you think I should do? They would never respond. And that is the same with us therapists. And people seem to think this is a soft science and not really. No, it's a real science with real research and real things that we do ethically. Do not send me those specific questions. Having said that, I will tell you that when I start my Patreon in January of 2025, if you want to join and be part of that community, which I hope you are, I would love to get closer to you and have more time with you. I will be happy to talk. You can ask a more specific thing and I will answer again in more of a broad way. Like I can't say, well, for you, here's what you should do. I'm not going to sit there and do a whole, psycho evaluation on you, but I can talk about in real time, here are things for people who have trouble with cheating. Here's what works, and then the person will have an opportunity to be like, well, I can't do that because of this, which might be true for a lot of people. So we can talk about that. Like, oh yeah, a lot of people have trouble with that. Let's talk about what you can do if this is an area of, your partner won't go to therapy with you, or your partner will go to therapy, but they, keep apologizing, but nothing changes. I don't know. There's lots of ways to continue the conversation that's why I'm doing the Patreon. I think it'll be really cool. I will really enjoy having that time with you. So if you have something very specific, more specific, you can save it for then. Just knowing though, that I'm not going to spend, obviously an hour like answering your one question. I won't, there's a lot of people to serve. So, but we will absolutely go deep on different topics, and you'll be able to ask questions, very specific questions about different topics, which I am really looking forward to. And I also want to say that I have a weekly love letter that goes out, and I've been doing that for years. And coming January, there will be a charge. I'm going to change the name of the love letter to Love Bites. Isn't that cute? I know. And you can still get it for free twice a month. And it'll still be the awesome fabulousness it is right now. But and I was going to just stop the newsletter and just do it twice a month. And then because it takes me so much time, this love letter I send out, these love bites, it takes me a lot of time to write these every week and be valuable. And so now I'm going to be charging. If you want to get it twice a month, you can, and it'll be free. But after that, there'll be a very nominal charge and a free course that's going to go along with it, which I'll share more as we get closer, because I think this is coming out in October. So as we get closer to November, December, I'll get more specific on how much it'll cost. It'll be a nominal fee, and this free course that I've developed right now that you'll get for the whole year. So anyway, but in how to, it's a little mini thing. It'll be like 5 minutes a week. And it's I call it love talks. Like it's how to have all these great communication tools in really quick little bites, because I know if you're listening, you also like things in quick bites, and I'm dedicated to bringing them to you. So there's a lot of really cool things rolling out. My Boundaries Made Easy workbook is coming out in December, I think, I'm getting told. So there'll be a workbook to go along with the book, Boundaries Made Easy. If you have bought one of my books, Be Happily Married Even If Your Partner Won't Do a Thing, or Boundaries Made Easy, please leave a review on Amazon. That really helps other people find it. If you enjoyed it, leave a review. It would mean a lot to me. It would really help, just like leaving a review for the podcast. There's lots of ways to be part of the community. Again, spending no money, spending money, buy a mug if you want to, buy a notebook. There's things to do, or get information for free. You can absolutely do that too. I want you here either way. All right. That's it. That's all the extras or the other things. I love you. It's why I'm here week after week, very consistently, going in my 7th year, because I really am looking to make world peace. Be on it with me. If everybody had access, think about it. If everyone you knew was listening to this, wouldn't the world be a better place? Wouldn't we have more love? Wouldn't we have more connection, ease, and joy? And that's what I'm going for. So be part of it. Help me out. Spread the word. Do your thing. But most of all, love yourself. Be there for you. All right. Mwah. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you real soon.